So Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter 29 has just been released, and this chapter is absolute peak. Before we even get into it, love the choreography that we saw in this chapter. There's just so much to talk about, and in this chapter review I'll be going down a lot of the details that did take place, but this chapter was phenomenal. And before we get into the review, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hype up the video so it can be pushed out to more people. And let me know your own personal rating of this chapter, and I'll be letting you guys know my own at the end. But the chapter cover is absolute peak, and it is Boruto. The title for this chapter is Pest Control, as we see take place in this chapter. But Boruto, this is personally my favorite cover that we've received in the time skip so far. This cover is absolute perfection. We have Boruto with his karma, his sword. He's looking elegant, obviously, with the open jacket. He looks like he got too much aura, man. I can't even lie. And I like how this is a bit of a callback to the first instance where we had Boruto use the karma, where in the past it was Boruto's eye with the Byakugan. That showcases that Momoshiki is in control, as that was the only eye open. But this time Boruto, who is using the karma, we see that his other eye, his human eye, is the one that is actually open, slightly open like this cover, but it showcases that Boruto is now the one in control with the karma. We end up going back to a flashback between Momoshiki and Boruto, and this was something I knew was going to come due to the simple patterns that we can see Boruto have. But the side text is a negotiation has been proposed. Will Momoshiki lend his power? And in this conversation, we see the question that Boruto asks Momoshiki, and now we hear the question. One thing that is very important is the fact that Momoshiki can hear and listen to Boruto's thoughts, and vice versa. So lying would be inconsequential, as Momoshiki would know that Boruto is lying. So there are no tricks that could be played, as they can hear each other's thoughts. So Boruto continues by saying, will you take this deal, yes or no? And Boruto and Momoshiki says yes, and that he can use whatever is necessary to do so using his powers. And then we see Boruto with the karma. But something that was very important that is mentioned is the fact that Boruto's plan is revealed to Momoshiki, where what is going to happen is that Kawaki is supposed to kill Momoshiki / Boruto at the end of their battle. And that was just like we also predicted. A lot of the things that we predicted in this chapter did come to be, as one of my theories was that Boruto's plan was to let Kawaki kill him after he lets Momoshiki take control to defeat the Senju. And that's exactly what is taking place and what Momoshiki says. But Momoshiki believes that he'll be able to deal with Kawaki. Why are things different? What type of soul training has Momoshiki underwent? Maybe nothing, or maybe now he's about to try and train his soul, but we'll see. Boruto's body is a lot stronger, and Boruto was clearly stronger than Kawaki before Kawaki got his limiters removed, and we potentially could see Kawaki get another upgrade, so it's going to be vastly interesting to see how things take place. But we see Boruto put up in this elegant fashion, has too much swagger to him, and he uses his karma. And now we see some beautiful choreography from Ikimoto, as the paneling, everything that we see take place is amazing. We see that Boruto immediately launches out and ends up using a Rasengan at point blank range, and he destroys that Mamushi clone. Then multiple of the Mamushi clones end up running towards him, where we then see Boruto, who throws shurikens at that clone's eye, and with one slash, a 360-degree slash, he ends up cutting all of the Mamushi clones' eyes and preventing them from being able to clone themselves even further. Then we see something that is important and is the most groundbreaking part of the chapter to me, Boruto using the Byakugan, and this caused so much controversy. And you guys have probably seen the video I dropped regarding my personal take. This does not disprove the fact that the Jogan is canon. It has nothing to do with the Jogan. Boruto has already been shown to be able to use the Byakugan, and I think that this exposes a lot of people who don't actually read the story with their eyes open. They're clearly reading it with their eyes closed, because we have seen this in the past. This is not the first time that Boruto ends up using the Byakugan. And obviously, if you want to learn more on my argumentation about why the Jogan is canon, make sure to watch the video after this one, but this doesn't disprove anything that we have seen. None of the rhetoric is being disproven here. And I did include a funny intro, and some people didn't know I was joking. I was joking with that intro I made for the previous video. But what we see next is Boruto utilizing his Byakugan, where he ends up seeing behind the building and using a lot of the shuriken training that he did have with Sasuke. He ends up shooting out 2 shurikens and using the other one to bend the trajectory of the shuriken, where he ends up hitting Mamushi in the back of the head, and he teleports to that shuriken and ends up using the Odama Rasengan on all 3 of the Mamushi clones. Boruto looks like he's a lot stronger, a lot faster, and we can clearly see it. Boruto is using this jutsu, and I like the black outline. It just showcases how much stronger Boruto ends up being now. And then Boruto goes to a different location. And as the Mamushi clones are being killed, they're regaining a level of strategy, they're regaining a level of intelligence, and then they end up deciding that, okay, yeah, we don't really care about Boruto, all we're trying to do is fight Ida, so it doesn't matter. But it is at that moment that we see Kawaki also make a move. Kawaki with his karma, and then we see the Mamushi clones end up flying towards Kawaki. They fly towards Kawaki, and we have Kawaki who interchanges with them. His power is a lot strong, bro. The way that Ikimoto did the art for this chapter is peak. Because look at Kawaki's hands, it just looks amazing when he ends up punching one of the Mamushi clones. He punches multiple of them, just clean headshots. It's a headshot where every punch. Kawaki is just that strong. Then he ends up using his claw marks. Loves the way that Ikimoto is choreographing this. It looks peak. He calls his staff like he's Thor, and then after ends up slashing multiple of the clonograms by the head, preventing them from being able to clone. And using his staff ability, this explosion almost fiery type ability that he can use using his staff, he ends up puncturing multiple of the clonograms and we see them down. But yet again, they regain a level of intelligence and they keep focusing on Ida. They don't really care. They can make as many clones as they want, but all they're doing right now is just going to go find Ida. And that's very interesting because even though all of these guys, they're clones, okay, they're being killed by Kawaki and Boruto, so it doesn't really matter because more can be made, more of them can be created, and thus what is important for them to do, unless they just want to continue wasting their chakra, is getting all of them in the same location, because right now they are still going in various different groups and are not in the same location. So this should be something that Boruto and Kawaki take into mind, or they're going to be wasting their chakra. But another very interesting part of this chapter is Mitsuki. Mitsuki ends up being interrogated by Kobu, where it is then revealed that yeah, there is a strong likelihood that Mitsuki has something to play. And Konohama, realizing this, he's like, okay, let me take the burden off Mitsuki, let me just place it on myself, because if they figure out that Mitsuki is involved, then Shikamaru is gonna end up being involved here. After the conversation that everybody had with Kashin Koji and Konohama, it seems like Konohama is going to be working with Kashin Koji in this particular instance. And then what we end up seeing is Shikamaru is trying to get Mitsuki out of there so that he can join the battle. And I definitely want to see Mitsuki in this arc. What we do end up seeing is Shikamaru telling Sai to let Mitsuki out. There's clonograms that are fighting, so everybody is being notified right here, but it is going to be a little bit hard to get Mitsuki out of there. The Mamushi clones end up meeting with more people. They don't seem like they just want to cause harm. They're just basically looking for Ida, man. And nobody seems to know where Ida is at the current moment. But Boruto easily, he just runs around and he is capable of just hitting the Mamushi clones easily and killing them. We then see Konohama, who tries to interject and say that he was lying the entire time. But Kobu actually has a lot of intellect. He's easily capable of knowing that Konohama is indeed lying and he is trying to cover up somebody else. And because of that, because what he was questioning Mitsuki for was basically who is the mole, and then we have Konohama who comes in and wants to protect the mole, then it means that Konohamaru must know who exactly that mole is. And thus Kobu, the only person who he hasn't really interrogated that could have played a big role in this, because Konohamaru and Shikamaru were the only people with the code, alongside Sai, I think, then if it wasn't Konohamaru, as he is a terrible liar, then it must be Shikamaru, and thus Shikamaru is going to be the one to come next, as he says bring in the Hokage, as his turn is next. What we could be seeing is the end of Shikamaru as Hokage, and I really wonder who is going to be the next one. Then we end up seeing Mamushi's clone, who is interacting with Himawari. Himawari is trying to come in and catch them off guard, but one of the Clockgarms realized. But it was at a point where a lot of the Mamushi clones had spawned many more clones, so their intellect was down. But Mamushi ends up being tagged, and unlike the rest of the characters that we have seen, Himawari is not capable of one-shotting the clones. She doesn't do that much damage, but only pushes back the clone. And the clone ends up spawning in 2 more clones who are then hit using this new technique. I really love this. Himawari being involved with Chocho and Shikadai, but Shikadai ends up using his new jutsu, his new net casting shadow paralysis jutsu that ends up catching all of the Mamushi clones, and then they end up falling to the ground. One thing that people have to keep in mind is that yes, they are strong, however, they are at a very low state in intellect, as we just got information that more of the clones ended up spawning, so their intelligence drastically decreased. And then we have Chocho, who ends up slamming them quite easily. But we end up looking at this and we see an Inogen who is geeked, an Inogen who is quite happy with everything that is taking place, but that is not the case for Kashin Koji. Kashin Koji doesn't look happy at all, and the side text that we see is, despite everyone's hard work to reduce Mamushi's numbers, Kashin Koji seems displeased. And why is that the case? The only reason why Kashin Koji would be displeased is due to the fact that the future is not changing for the better, and it could be changing for the worse. We had multiple instances in this chapter where Mamushi exceeded the recommended 230 amounts of clones, and that is a very big problem, as although their intelligence will drop even more, the more and more clones there is, the more of a likelihood we have characters losing their amount of chakra, overusing chakra due to fighting the same opponent multiple times, and due to the fact that they have to take care of the clones quite quickly that are in a group, because if you don't kill them all, more clones are just going to be made, so you have to kill them all in sequential order at a quick pace. But that could be a reason why Kashin Koji may be upset. But one thing that is quite alarming is the fact that Himawari is supposed to be a character who dies in this arc, alongside Ida potentially being captured. So when we do end up seeing Himawari make an appearance versus one of the Mamushi clones, it is quite telling, because we did see Chocho slam them, but we didn't see Chocho damage any one of their eyes. So could we potentially be seeing one of the clones end up making more clones and surrounding all of them? Because it seems like this attack, it only worked because they caught them by surprise. But what truly happens when these Clockgarms are not caught by surprise? They are not ambushed by Team 10. It's going to be quite intriguing to see what ends up taking place, but for right now, we are not moving towards the best future. But Boruto is making his way to that location, I believe. So in this next chapter, I do think we're potentially going to be seeing Ida and Damon. But from what we have seen in this chapter, I'd rate it a cool 8.5 to a 9. This chapter was absolute peak. And definitely let me know your own personal rating for this chapter. It's been your boy Dynasty, and I'm out, bruh.